The supreme virtuous intention is what we should cultivate now. Once this supreme intent arises, it generates vast and excellent merit, touching the key point of accomplishing the two supreme benefits. Regardless of the aspirant's gender, appearance, or status, the nature of this karma is already inconceivably virtuous. At first glance, generating bodhicitta for the benefit of self and others may not seem difficult. But upon closer observation, we will find it's not simple. For ordinary beginners who haven't systematically trained in bodhicitta, if they find it hard to arouse it genuinely, they can generate a similar intention temporarily. It's not easy. Those who have aroused bodhicitta are remarkable. It requires a broad vision. Without wisdom, it's impossible. Generating such a long-term aspiration is not easy. Take your time to learn it. I exhort you every day to cultivate bodhicitta, but how many of you can do it? It's not easy. So, you must earnestly start by recognizing all beings as your mother, and remembering their kindness, as taught in the 7 steps of cause and effect meditation to generate bodhicitta. It's not simple. The first characteristic of the supreme virtuous intention. Any wholesome act, even offering a single lamp, can generate either immense or minimal merit. The first characteristic of the supreme virtuous intent is performing wholesome deeds purely 100% for the benefit of countless sentient beings. Fundamentally, the degree of merit is not determined by external factors like the number of prostrations or the quality of offering vessels. So, is there a difference between making offerings to the Buddha with a golden vessel or a clay one? If performed with a vast intent. After generating bodhicitta, offering with a golden vessel certainly yields greater merit. The nature of the act is the same, but the merit differs. Suppose person A generates bodhicitta and makes offerings to the Buddha with bare hands. Person B, without bodhicitta, offers with a golden vessel. A's merit surpasses B's by countless times. They are not comparable. The second characteristic of the supreme virtuous intention. Does benefiting sentient beings mean providing them with clothing, food, shelter, and transportation? In fact, sentient beings can obtain these things through their own efforts. When performing virtuous deeds, we should think, I must attain Buddhahood together with all sentient beings. This is the second characteristic of the supreme virtuous intention. These two characteristics are indispensable. The first type of intention is the boatman's aspiration, vowing to reach the other shore together with all passengers. This motivation perfectly embodies the middle way. The second type is the shepherd's aspiration, with Manjushri as the most typical example. He doesn't build his Buddha field or hasten to attain Buddhahood. Many of his disciples have already become Buddhas, yet he remains a bodhisattva. The 7 Buddhas represents many Buddhas, not literally 7. In the past, 7 symbolized perfection, a cycle, and a large number. Manjushri's countless disciples have attained Buddhahood, yet he remains a bodhisattva. It's not because he doesn't know how to practice, but because he doesn't rush. After exhorting others to generate bodhicitta, he leaves them to follow the path. His disciples dwell all over the universe, and eventually all worlds become his Buddha field. When Manjushri attains Buddhahood, his Buddha field will be vast, composed of innumerable pure lands. His aspiration is like a shepherd's. I shall help you achieve Buddhahood first. I'm not in a hurry. The third type is the king's aspiration. I shall attain Buddhahood first, and then liberate you. Though they aspire to lead beings to enlightenment, their motivation is limited. However, they might transform over time. While their aspiration is Bodhichitta, it is not excellent and doesn't embody the middle way. Since attaining Buddhahood requires benefiting sentient beings, how could one reach it without helping others? Such practitioners rush toward enlightenment, like mountain climbers, thinking, I'll reach the summit first and then help you. But unlike worldly achievements, attaining Buddhahood requires benefiting sentient beings. After becoming a Buddha, one must continue to serve beings. The Buddhahood they attain belongs to the shared teaching system, not the perfect teaching system. Have you learned the 4 types of the Buddha's teachings? Tripitaka, shared, separate, and perfect. The Tripitaka teaching belongs to the Hinayana and does not lead to Buddhahood. The shared teaching can lead beings to Buddhahood. However, when they find that even the first ground bodhisattvas of the separate teaching surpass them in spiritual achievement, they generate aspiration and practice again. Some attain this kind of Buddhahood in the domain of the shared teaching. The separate teaching is different. Upon reaching the first bodhisattva ground, it merges with the perfect teaching. Bodhisattvas in the separate teaching are essentially the same as those in the perfect teaching. The Buddhas of the shared teaching system, however, are quite different. Though they believe they have attained Buddhahood, their realization is not ultimate. Those who aspire to attain Buddhahood first before liberating others achieve enlightenment in the shared teaching system, but that's not perfect Buddhahood. After realizing the nature of the mind, or the great perfection, you won't generate such limited aspirations. That insight will drive you to vow, at the very least, to attain Buddhahood simultaneously with all beings. Your realization shapes and determines your motivation. With true insight into the great perfection, you will eventually attain perfect enlightenment. At the very least, you will achieve Buddhahood together with all beings, without sequence. The Buddhas of the 10 directions ultimately generate this aspiration, embodying the middle way. Those who don't build their Buddha fields first, such as Manjushri and Kshitigarbha, are rare but exist. Since beginningless time, we have developed deeply ingrained selfish tendencies. In every thought, we instinctively put ourselves first. In everything we do, we tend to prioritize our own benefit. For example, worrying about falling behind, many Chinese people don't like queuing, but prefer to cut in line or push ahead. This is our habit. The aspiration to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings is the safest, and the intent free from seeking personal gain is the most excellent. Attaining Buddhahood is also for the sake of sentient beings. To possess great wisdom, power, and compassion, we strive for Buddhahood. With these qualities, we can liberate beings more swiftly. We should aspire to attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Let me read a story recorded in this commentary. When Buddha Shakyamuni was reborn in hell in a past life, he and his companion Karmarapa were pulling a cart together. Being too weak to move it, they were beaten by the hell warden with scorching weapons. He should have had roots of virtue. In a past life, he was likely a practitioner who committed wrongdoing and fell into hell. At that time, he thought, rather than suffering together, I would rather bear it alone so that Karmarapa may have some relief. Karmarapa was probably his fellow practitioner, mother, or benefactor. Perhaps they created negative karma together and fell into hell. That's why he generated this altruistic thought toward him. So, he said to the warden, please tie my companion's rope around my neck and let me pull the cart alone. The warden roared, everyone bears their own karma. Who can change it? And struck his head with an iron hammer. By the power of his altruistic thought, he immediately left hell and was reborn in heaven. Therefore, we should rejoice in hell beings. Once they arouse a virtuous thought, they are liberated from hell. The sutras state that this was the beginning of the Buddha's altruism. Without suffering, one won't think of benefiting others. Many people generate bodhicitta amid hardship. Suffering greatly helps us cultivate renunciation and bodhicitta. Only by contemplating the truth of suffering deeply can we develop renunciation and bodhicitta. Hence, suffering is beneficial. From that time on, the Buddha never harbored a single selfish thought. In contrast, from the time we became sensible till now, everything we have done is for our own benefit. We rarely think about benefiting others. We even compete for bus seats and rush to the front of shopping lines. In all situations, we calculate, how much benefit can I gain? The Buddha, at his causal stage, had generated bodhicitta and dedicated himself to benefiting others. In the end, he attained the blissful Buddhahood long ago. Conversely, we focus on pursuing our own benefit, but remain distressed. Countless kalpas ago, Buddha Shakyamuni was also an ordinary being, just like us. You might even have been his mother at some point. Yet, we are still ordinary beings. Long ago, we all had karmic connections with the Buddha, you know? The sentient beings of this Saha world share deep karmic ties with the 1,000 Buddhas of the good Kalpa. These Buddhas attained enlightenment in our world. There are countless beings in this Trichiliocosm. Although beings also dwell in other worlds, the 1,000 Buddhas of the good Kalpa achieved enlightenment here. Among countless beings, 1,000 attained Buddhahood, known as the 1,000 Buddhas of the good Kalpa. Though you may not be among these 1,000 Buddhas, being liberated by them or reborn in their pure lands is also great. Alternatively, attaining a lesser fruition to be free from suffering and avoid falling into the 3 lower realms is nice. Even generating bodhicitta is good enough. No hurry. You can attain Buddhahood in the next kalpa. In this lifetime, we should focus on cultivating bodhicitta and selflessness. As I have always emphasized, if you perfect these 2 practices, you have succeeded. You will naturally attain the subsequent fruitions. If you realize non-self, first of all, you won't fall into the 3 lower realms. Furthermore, with bodhicitta, you have the seed of Buddhahood. So, what is there to worry about? There is no need to worry. At that point, you can practice the unconditioned dharma and attain Buddhahood effortlessly, free from all concerns. Even if you only realize the Hinayana wisdom of emptiness while generating Mahayana bodhicitta, that is fine. Even if it is conventional bodhicitta, rather than the ultimate, that's sufficient. But your aspiration must be genuine. Ask yourself, Have I truly generated Bodhichitta? Even conventional Bodhichitta is enough. Consider how the Buddha first generated Bodhichitta in hell. It must be conventional Bodhichitta. From then on, he continuously benefited others without arousing selfish thoughts. In the end, he attained Buddhahood. If you have uprooted selfishness through practice, will you worry about not attaining Buddhahood? The most fundamental emptiness is non-self, and the most basic aspiration is conventional Bodhicitta. If you possess these two qualities, like a pair of wheels, you will succeed. Afterward, your wisdom of emptiness will gradually expand, and your Bodhicitta will grow with every thought. In other words, plant the right seeds from the beginning. Afterward, they will gradually grow and flourish. But if you plant the wrong seeds, they can never yield the right fruit. Therefore, it's essential to establish the right foundation. If you don't even have the Hinayana wisdom of emptiness, how can you talk about the great perfection every day? If you cannot even realize the wisdom of emptiness in the Hinayana, how could you possibly attain the wisdom of Mahayana emptiness or the great perfection? That's impossible. I often address this issue. If you can't even walk steadily on a wide road, how could you walk a tightrope? If you stumble on flat ground, stray into fields, get distracted by roadside scenery, and pick others' flowers, how could you balance on a rope? If you say you can, who would believe it? The supreme virtuous intention must have two characteristics. 1. I perform this virtuous act to benefit all sentient beings. 2. I perform this virtuous act for myself and others to attain Buddhahood simultaneously, without sequence. These two characteristics are essential. Next, we will learn an even more supreme motivation, the shepherd-style aspiration. Whether becoming a Buddha or falling into hell, one focuses solely on helping all beings achieve enlightenment. This is the supreme intention, with which one can attain Buddhahood most swiftly. If you cannot generate such an intention, you should at least cultivate the boatman's aspiration taught earlier. The boatman's aspiration embodies the middle way. The third type, the shepherd's aspiration, entails full dedication to benefiting others. With this vast aspiration, even offering a single lamp or making one prostration generates supreme merit. Let's look at the example of an old lady's lamp offering. A poor old lady, upon seeing King Ajatashatru make lamp offerings stretching from his palace to Jetavana monastery, was deeply moved. She also wished to make offerings to the Buddha. So she used the only 2 coins she had begged that day to buy oil. The shopkeeper said, "You can barely make a living. Why not buy food instead?" She replied, "It's rare to encounter the field of merit, the Buddha. I must plant merits for my future lives." Then she lit her lamp before the Buddha. Considering the small amount of oil wouldn't last half the night, she vowed, "If I can attain Buddhahood for all beings in the future, may this lamp burn through the night." That night, some of the lamps offered by King Ajatashatru ran out of oil and went out. Yet, the lamp offered by the old lady was exceptionally bright. Its light shone throughout the night, and the oil never burned out. The next morning, Venerable Modgalyayana went to extinguish the lamps according to the Buddha's instruction. The other lamps were all extinguished, but the lamp offered by the old lady remained lit after 3 attempts. Then Modgalyayana used his rope to fan the lamp, but the light shone even brighter. He used his supernatural powers to summon a strong wind to blow out the lamp, but the light became even more radiant. Its radiance reached Brahma heaven and illuminated the entire Trichiliocosm. Why couldn't Mahamaud Kalyayana, who possessed the greatest supernatural powers, extinguish a single lamp? The Buddha explained that Shravaka's self-centered motivation was not as vast as the old lady's aspiration. Hence, he couldn't extinguish this lamp. Ordinary people might think, compared to the king's vast offerings, the old lady only offered one lamp. It doesn't look like a supreme offering. In terms of external appearances, her offering was indeed meager. But her intent was for the sake of all sentient beings. Thus, her merit far surpassed the king's. Therefore, when doing good deeds, we should generate genuine and vast virtuous intentions from the depths of our hearts, not performing them superficially. To put it simply, we must have a genuine intention. When we examine our motivations, we often find them superficial rather than pure and sincere. Deep inside, we may cling to or expect something. Yet, outwardly, we perform acts of generosity. If we cannot arouse a genuine aspiration, we should generate it in a similar way. At first, you can only deliberately guide your mind in the right direction. Since you cannot generate a genuine aspiration, you should strive to train your mind according to the dharma and then practice generosity. These two types of aspirations are different. One is sincerely generated from the depths of the heart, while the other is imitative and contrived. Here is an example. A traveler, exhausted and starving, is invited to a meal. At that moment, his longing for food is genuine. Another person, already full, is invited to a meal. Though he goes there out of politeness, he eats without real appetite. These two attitudes are different. It's not hard to generate an imitative, contrived aspiration. It only requires slightly guiding the mind in the right direction. Once generated, it is also very meaningful. Initially, you can only generate an imitative, contrived aspiration. Gradually, it will become genuine. Take some time to nurture it, starting with remembering the kindness of sentient beings. Our gratitude is insufficient. That's why we struggle to develop authentic bodhicitta. Only those with deep gratitude can develop genuine bodhicitta. The stronger the foundation, the more genuine the bodhicitta. It requires gradual training. The degree of merit depends on the motivation. Take offering a lamp as an example. If the motivation is to obtain benefits in this or future lives, it becomes a cause for such worldly rewards. If the motivation is to attain liberation from samsara, it becomes a cause for one's own liberation. If the motivation is vast, supreme, and perfect, it generates immense merit that can not only benefit samsaric beings, but also help Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas attain Buddhahood. Striving to meet the standards of the supreme virtuous intention is crucial, even if you cultivate it in a similar, contrived way. Beginners can only gradually train their minds in a similar way. We should often recollect the kindness of sentient beings. Remembering the kindness of sentient beings is vital. Since beginningless time, we have interacted with all beings. Without recognizing them as mothers and remembering their kindness, genuine loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta won't arise. those who haven't practiced the stages of Bodhichitta can cultivate their aspiration according to the above teachings. Regarding the cultivation of the supreme virtuous intention, enlightened beings and great masters have explained the steps. So, we won't elaborate on these steps here in detail. The words of my perfect teacher explains methods for cultivating Bodhichitta, including the 7 steps of cause and effect meditation and exchanging self and others. Please study these teachings earnestly. Excellence in the beginning, generating Bodhichitta. Although external behaviors, like physical and verbal actions, are also preparation, they are not the most crucial. The key lies in one's motivation. Generating a clear motivation is the most important preparation. Therefore, the 6th preliminary practice emphasizes making proper mental preparations before actual practice. This means aspiring in the mind to benefit all sentient beings perfectly, ultimately, and swiftly. May I attain Buddhahood. To achieve this goal, I shall earnestly meditate on the stages of purifying mental activity. After generating Bodhichitta, practice the following 4 meditations: multiplicity, impermanence, suffering, and selflessness. We may not have cultivated qualified Bodhichitta, or we merely recite Bodhichitta prayers without genuinely arousing it, or we may not have generated Bodhichitta at all. Such phenomena are quite common. While chanting Bodhichitta prayers, many don't truly understand what it means to generate Bodhichitta. Moreover, we can develop Bodhichitta by meditating on the truth of suffering. When you deeply reflect on your suffering and thoroughly understand it, seeing how sentient beings remain ignorant of the truth of suffering and blindly create karma, compassion will naturally arise. Contemplating suffering easily ignites Bodhichitta, as beings don't understand why they suffer. Now, we have learned about generating Bodhichitta and other preliminary practices. The key is to generate the supreme intention. We must earnestly study how to cultivate Bodhichitta. For now, we should focus more on recognizing all beings as our mothers, remembering their kindness, reflecting on others' virtues and benevolence, and contemplating how, since beginningless time, our parents and friends have helped us achieve realization. Of course, we have also created negative karma in these relationships. To attain Buddhahood, we must help them. But first, we should strive to progress in our dharma practice. The underlying karma is complex.